hear from the finance minister. There's been a long morning of analysis with our guests and, of course, the in-house team walking through what to expect for you. I have in the studio with me, as we look ahead now, it's almost upon us now when the finance minister will take to the Chamber of Parliament. We understand he has arrived with his suitcase. You're waiting for the Speaker to summon the House to order, and we should expect that the budget will be off and underway. As you see, that the Speaker himself is ready. With me in the studio is Dr. William Kwesi Pepra, is the Office of the Financial Administration and also a Chief Finance Officer joining us here in the studio. I'm grateful that you join us. With me also is my colleague, Kojo Yankson, who is standing with the smart wall behind him with some analysis ahead of this. There's some key things we wanted to pay attention to as we prepare to listen to the finance minister. Kojo is going to walk us through that, Kojo.
Sure, let's do this quickly, Evans. Now, the indicators tell a story. So when you go through the last few years, you start to observe a certain pattern. Let's start with expenditure versus revenue. Now, if you look at our graph, the top line is our expenditure, the bottom line is our revenue. All right, so as you go along, the gap between the two lines is our deficit. Now, look at what happened to our deficit from 2019 till now. The gap started to widen. Now, some people will ascribe this mainly to COVID-19, and that's a logical argument, but obviously there are far more other things to consider when you're trying to figure out what could cause such a massive gap between these two lines. Let's have a look at what's happening with our interest payments. I had about 2.4 billion being the sum total of our interest payments on our debts, to what is happening today, 2021, 35.9 billion. That is the journey over the past 9 years. For compensation, the story is no cleaner. 7.2 billion is what we spent on compensation in the year 2012, and now 2021, we're scraping the skies with 34.6 billion being our expenditure on that. Let's take a look at our debt stock. Now, we've broken this up beautifully so you can understand all the elements. Every year has a different color so you can see what's happening. We're starting from 2016, 122.2 billion. That's how much we owed then. And we've broken it down into our external debt and, of course, what's happening on the local market, okay? So this is what happened in 2012 on our books at the moment, okay? Broken down into 161.8 coming from outside, 172 from the local market. Let's very quickly look at our debt to GDP ratio. Look at what's been happening to that graph. Over the years, we have simply turn that ratio into something that is towering to the very top of the line where we are currently looking at in June 2021, something like 77.1% debt to GDP ratio. And it started, as you can imagine, back in 2016 at 56.8%. Quite a journey in the upward direction there. Finally, before we go, let's look at what inflation has done this year alone. 10.3 in February. We came all the way down to 7.5, which was the lowest for the year in the month of May. But since then, inflation has not gone down again. And we're currently looking at an inflation rate of 11% as at October 2021. This is the atmosphere into which we are being told that food prices, for example, are going down, according to the Agric Minister. So there's a lot to unpick as we await Ken Ofori-Attah's briefing on how the economy will be, how affordable the year 2022 will be for Ghanaians.
Okay, so Kojo, thank you very much. And so that's a context within which, of course, the finance minister presentation should be viewed. I want to start with the last because as the city is misbehaving, it sort of has a ripple effect on prices of goods and services on the market. And we've seen that currently we have shot our own target. Yep. We are out of the ultimate inflation target. How significant is this? We're looking at the budget that's about to be read. What implications could this have going into 2022?
I think we have to look at the main drivers of the inflation basket. From the farm gates, it's not what the Agric Minister told us.
Okay.
Prices in terms of local food production have gone up, which is a major issue now. In the past, the months that it dropped, we could see that the food element had a major impact in the drop in inflation. So it means that we have to be able to work, which has contributed to this factor. From the angle of importation, not only the price, but its impact on the exchange rates as we are seeing now. Because every day, because the currency is not stable, it's being devalued, suppliers are increasing their prices daily. And we're a country where about 60% of what we consume are imported, and what it means that we are importing another country's inflation into doing as in a country, it will cause a reduction in the inflation that we are seeing. So I'm expecting that the finance minister will the budget, as he's allocating the resources, will make sure that Agri Ministry gets what they need. We know there were some challenges with fertilizer distribution during competition. We see that there's always increase in the inflation. So we have to pay much attention. So I'm expecting that the minister, with this reading of the budget, will make sure that 2022, what happened in 2021 with shortage of fertilizer supply to farmers will be handled.
Yeah, so that's another big one to watch. My guests joining us, of course, they've been with us all day. Let's see a whole range of is starting by with the team there. We have Professor Lord Mensah, he's a senior lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School. Dennis Brown is a senior manager, financial advisory at Deloitte. He's in the studio with me. Seth Tekba is a former finance minister. Dr. Joseph Obeng is with...
Because when we talk about taxes, we all know to increase the tax to GDP ratio, by 2 to 3 percentage points could take anything up to 3 years. And the gap that we are seeing is very wide. And therefore, if we don't do anything about expenditure, and given the fact that we are having difficulty in accessing the financial markets, of course we could go, but we'll have to pay a premium. So I would have wished that we saw more on expenditure, because that is what is driving, the deficit. I also think that we should be 2018. And so what we are seeing is a new basis. It is now being reflected, fully. Finally, I think it's very important that we see a comprehensive program, because the trajectory, where all of tax revenue cannot meet even 2 items. And I see, we need to be explicit about these things. It has actually been swallowing, all of total revenue. It's a trajectory that is unsustainable, just as our debt is unsustainable going into the year. And so this is what, I hope, to hear, from the minister, as former ministers have always done, this crunch, period. Yes, COVID, but the problems we have are not all COVID. And I think that I would continue to vote for him or herself. So those would be my thoughts. And as you said, I'll have to...
Yeah, I mean, just before you take leave of us, I mean, you started by talking about the borrowing. I need to ask you, when you left this current government in a place of around, from what we saw, around the 122 billion CD debt. We have million CDs from what you left. I mean, I wonder what your reaction is to that in 5 years.
Well, it's it's a bit alarming, because I believe that you listen to the Honorable Minister for Information indicates, and I'm glad that we are coming back to not comparing ourselves with Japan and with others who have 100%. That our sustainable window is 60-65%. And so if you went beyond the 65%, and now you are 15 percentage points above that at 80%. And there is no reason to think that this will abate. We may rather be hitting 83 to 85%, maybe by the end of this year. Then I think we are on a non-sustainable debt, trajectory. And this is why I look at the mix of what is it that is causing the debt, so that we don't confuse it. From 2013, it was rising, but by 2014, from 2014 to 2016, going to 2017, it fell. If you look at the rate of growth, maybe your staff can do that calculation. It is in the debt management report. That decline in the rate of borrowing was a result of we putting aside oil money into the sinking fund to take off, the first sovereign bond. 515 million of it was from our cash from the sinking fund. We refinanced, and then we had envisaged that the sinking fund will be used to be paying down. The fact is that you cannot keep borrowing and refinancing without repayment. We are not repaying. So on that specific, we are not repaying ourselves. What we are doing is that we are paying on an interest and deferring the principal. And this is what the World Bank president said recently, that we cannot be pushing the principal onto future generations. And so, yes, so the debt sustainable, but the debt itself will not, that is managing the debt itself through self-financing, sinking fund, and other things. But the debt itself would not manage itself if it is being fed by excessive expenditure and deficit. The framework starts with revenue, less expenditure, and that gives you the deficit. And it's a deficit that you are borrowing to finance. And it is when you are not paying, if you are paying more by way of amortization, then your rate of borrowing goes down, your debt stock goes down. If you are not paying down, you are only borrowing, then you see the sort of graph that you've been pointing to. So that would be my closing. In closing, I would just say we need a PG, more productive, and others. We need, mention has been made about our Greek. So we need a package, which is what we normally do when we do what we typically call austerity, programs. It's comprehensive. It's not about one fiscal instrument. It's not about expenditure, even though we're talking about it alone. It is about bringing taxes, expenditure, real sector, management of arrears like we did with single spine, bringing all of this to the table, having a discussion with players as we did with labor, in this case with IPPs and the rest, managing ESLA better, and then we'll be able to probably begin to get our way out of the woods.
Thank you very much, Sir Tekpa. Sir Tekpa is a former finance minister, and I'm grateful that he joined us. We still have a few of our guests still with us. George Ankoma is a partner, tax regulatory services at Deloitte, and thank you very much, George, for staying with us. I mean, on that last point there, 2016 to now, between expenditure and revenue, and the gap has the trend show the gap has consistently been increasing, being the widest this year. That gap there, that is clearly unsustainable, especially with the kind of borrowing and debt that we've accumulated in the past. It looks like the fiscal space we've expended it now. We've almost. I'm actually surprised we are not off the cliff yet. There's a lot riding on this budget. I mean, I wonder, before we go to the specifics, how critical is this budget to the economic survival of this country?
Yeah. Thank you. So this is what I think, that if you look at the graph, it's obvious that we are just growing in debt. And why are we growing? And I want to pick it even from where the former minister ended, the real sector. How do we enhance the real sector? I think we are about a time that we should be looking at how do we add more value to our produce. Because the debt is going up, one, because of the exchange rates. If you check the exchange rate, where it has gotten to, where it used to be, if you pick 5 years ago. Okay, so if you borrowed 100 million at a certain exchange rate, and today you are paying, how much is the exchange? Or even if you have not paid, what is the value now? And so that is part of what is going over the roof. And so I think that we need to start thinking about how do we add value to our products or production. We need to increase our export base to be able to earn more foreign exchange. We can do this by within industry. We need to look at, for instance, the mining sector. We have been two companies that are into refinery, mining refinery. Gold is a major export, but we export it at the raw stage. And so we are not able to add the value or bring value to it for us to earn more foreign exchange. If you are earning more foreign exchange, definitely we have more in, and our debt stock will definitely go down. We have cocoa. We are exporting cocoa in bags every year. What is stopping us from adding so much value to cocoa? So that we export and get more foreigners. We are getting so much from cocoa, but we can get more. We can get more by value addition. So I think that we are at this stage because we are grow the sectors, so that in the near future we are able to recover more. And we can only do this by enhancing the base.
Okay, so I guess what you say is long term. This is long term.
It's short to medium.
Short, is it?
Yes, for me, short to medium. How many years?
Basic architecture of our economy.
No.
Because if you want to do refinery and add value, that takes time. An example is the bauxite. The bauxite conversation we actually set up a whole vehicle for it. It's been 3 years,
okay.
And they just recently signed the first contract. That is how difficult it is just to get around changing those fundamentals.
I think I disagree.
Okay.
It is about commitment. It's about what we want to do. If we agree that we want to do this, we'll take specific steps and give ourselves a timeline. So I don't see that to be a long-term initiative. It should be a short to medium term. How long will it take?
Can the economy wait, though? I mean, I asked that question because of where we are currently.
Yes.
The challenge that the economy is facing. Can the economy wait till we see the benefits?
We don't necessarily have to wait to see the benefits, or we don't have to wait into the long term. Okay. What we are looking at is that we are going over the roof. How do we recover from that? Is it by taxing more? If you tax more, it becomes more expensive for industry. And we have discussed here earlier on in the day the issues around the benchmark and all that. And the fact that industry is complaining that the benchmark is making competition very expensive for them, and they are not able to compete. They are not able to export. Okay, we have a situation where I mentioned earlier we have nation. How are we getting ourselves ready to be able to tap into that market? If we are too expensive, we cannot tap into that market, okay? And others will be able to tap even though we are sitting at the head of it. So what I'm saying is that we need to start from somewhere. You cannot say, I need only immediate solutions.
Okay.
And
so
that's
a combination of both
exactly
should work.
That is my
okay. I mean, quick thoughts of that. Let me get my colleagues on the phone.
That one, I think that this budget, I'm expecting that government will set a proper direction, whether we are going on the line of production or on the line of importation. It's
interesting you say that. Sorry, to production. So, which is actually the way you rephrase it differently.
Yes.
So, I guess my curiosity is 5 years on, we are still saying that's what they should be doing in the 2022 budget. It only suggests one thing. They haven't actually achieved that bold objective they set themselves in 2016.
So, and during that consolidation, COVID came in.
Okay.
So that is why probably we have not seen the direction of production. But listening to what happened just last week and the GRA instruction on the benchmark tariffs gives an indication that probably government wants to focus on production. We also listened to the information minister giving some hints on some bringing some tariffs of protection to boost production in terms of manufacturing in that area. Yeah. And so what we can produce within the country as manufacturing companies as being set up and increase will all help us to be able to employ more. So I'm not speaking for government, but what I'm saying is that this budget should set the pace, and government promises that through what they use for the campaign, we should see it now. Because now government will have to get an enemy between, he needs to choose one, between AGI and Guta.
And Guta. You're right. So that's where we are. We see the finance minister there seated, having a conversation with the majority leader. Seated beside him is Nathaniel Marking. We're expecting him to read out the statement very soon, and then we'll all be wiser. All the speculation will stop, and then we get it here. But there are some few things that you can bang on because of the settings to which those who know have articulated them. Particularly the benchmark value conversation. It's one that is certainly from our conversations going to happen. We will see what else we hear. But talking about that, I want to bring in with us. He was last night with me on PM Express as we talked about this. I wonder, he wasn't too sure that this will happen because he says they've made strong representations to the finance ministry. And as we know, minutes to the reading of the budget, a lot can change. So maybe he's managed to convince them not to put it in. Dr. Bing, thanks for your patience and staying with us throughout. I'm pretty sure your television is quite on, and you've been watching the finance minister quietly seated. Have you managed to convince him since last night that he shouldn't do what he had told us? His friends and colleagues in government had told us will happen tonight. Sorry, please unmute yourself, Dr. Bing. Kindly unmute us so we can hear you.
I forgot about it.
I can hear you, yes.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's about the truth. We have presented the true picture to everybody. That the true reflection, the fact that we are in a serious crisis, the effect of the pandemic, and this time is conducive for such a reversal of a good, otherwise very good policy, then it's up to them. But to tell the truth, we have presented a very cogent argument, and we believe that all Ghanaians know the truth about what we presented, and we believe that government also being sensitive to the plight of the Ghanaian consuming public as well as the trading community will also see some reason into this. Because if you are reversing a policy that you brought to solve a problem, then if you reverse it, does it mean you are reversing us to doom? Are you reversing us to the problem that we were in before? Without talking with us, be happy if this thing is introduced, seriously. And we wouldn't know how to manage our frustration.
Okay, so those are the concerns there. We've had a lot of it already. We're just waiting to hear from the finance minister as far as that is concerned. Now, we've also had conversations about the government fundamentally will have to raise revenue. I've heard this morning the conversation you've had already about, do you strengthen compliance or do you impose new taxes? I think I get a consensus that strengthening compliance is the way to go, that nobody can take any more stress. But we've been saying compliance for a long time, and it hasn't happened. I mean, so it begs the question, listening from a very ordinary man's point of view, what is the guarantee that that can change? I mean, most people who watch this happen. So government tend to do what they say the lazy man's approach, slap and slap and slap. Should we just be consigned to that reality now, that no matter how hard we try, the basket just leaks, and it has been leaking for so long? Have any of you had any radical solution to this problem? We've talked about digitalization. It's fixing other problems. We've tried to do that with tolls. It hasn't fully worked. I mean, I live on, you also live in Oyibi Road, because you Valley View. I live there too. They installed the automated gates. It's been probably 3 months or 4 or 6 months since they did that. Already it's breaking down. I mean, that is just an anecdotal evidence of the problem. But isn't that where the problem is? That we just be consigned. And so there's a suggestion, I think Okojo might even mention that what do? You scrap tolls altogether and then put it on something else, maybe on fuel, where everybody thinking around it. Let me start with you.
On the tax, well, how to bring in more and make sure that through compliance, government, especially from the side of GRA, I'm expecting them to be more proactive. When government gave them some NAPCO workers to join them, they said they were going to ensure compliance. I was expecting that instead of GRA waiting for people to come to their offices for tax relationship or something, GRA was going to train these men, send them around to make sure and review books and make sure that individuals pay or companies pay their taxes. But I didn't see that.
Yeah.
All those students on the NAPCO program also went to sit in the offices. So all of them were waiting, and they were being paid every month. Now they have been asked to come back. I'm expecting that you train them, you give them targets, let them go out, go to companies, give them targets, so that when they're able to achieve the revenue generation from, then we know that we are getting somewhere. But as we said, the revenue generation, they wait for us to come.
Yeah.
And we will never go. No one wants to pay tax. So I'm expecting that and also on that side, the targets we set for GRA, they say it's negotiated rate between the ministry and GRA most of the times. But if you look at the rates, they are not challenging enough.
Okay.
We should be able to give them some challenging targets that will force them to move. I give an example.
Forgive me, I'm told that the finance minister is just up and just about reading the budget now. Just before we go there, I want to take a quick break. So when we return, we hear from the finance minister. Yeah. And you're still with us here on the should be ready to address the House. And as you see, the House is ready to have him. We'll go there very shortly. But I still have my guest with me, Dr. Williams Kwesi Pepra, with the Office of Financial Administration at the Valley View University. We have George Ankama, is a partner, Tax Regulatory Services at Deloitte. Also, Dennis Brown is a Senior Manager, Financial Advisory at Deloitte. And we also have Professor Lord Mensah, is the Senior Lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School. Ms. Ankama, we're talking about earlier before we went for that quick break about the realities facing.
So, earlier on I was talking of how do we enhance the current taxes that we have. We have provisions in the tax laws that we are actually not pushing to collect. And I continue to say that we are in the digital world now. We have what's called e-services or e-commerce within the value-added tax regime, okay, which allows the Revenue Authority to be able to tax services, e-services. There is just the need for some guide for that, but no revenue is being generated in terms of taxes, and this is where government or the GRA needs to put in specific guidelines to be able to rake in the necessary taxes. Earlier on in the day, we spoke about also another law which has been passed since 2018. It's called the Fiscal Electronic Device Act, which was passed in somewhere May 2018. Okay, the whole idea is for the purpose of introducing the POS system to be able to bring in who should be contracted to be able to import and supply the POS systems and how to manage that. And that got stuck on the way. So nothing has happened. What's the essence of investing so much to pass a law? Our parliamentarians spent nights to pass the law. And at the end of the day, we are not implementing it. So you see, these are some things that we are actually not taking action on. And then we go back and say we are not just getting enough revenue. Yeah. And so we need more revenue. And for that matter, we need to go for loans. For this budget, I'm also % which is paid by some institutions, okay?
Please go.
Some institutions, financial institutions, mining support services, and some other entities. I suspect that that possibility of expanding that is supposed to, whenever it's expanded, it's extended. Currently, it's supposed to expire by 2024. So there's that possibility of probably expanding those who are to pay that type of levy, the 5% fiscal stabilization levy. That notwithstanding, other sectors are complaining, like the financial institutions, the banks per se, given the introduction of the financial